a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Good morning and welcome to the Business Hour. I'm Ron Comacho, your host. And today the business at hand is the business of preparing future generations to be skilled in many aspects of film and television production. And we're going to be offering a close-up view of those various aspects of career preparation. The film and television industry in Georgia has thrived in the last decade or two, and in no measure because of support from many organizations, or I should say a handful of pivotal organizations, such as the Georgia Film Commission. And the future of the industry looks brighter than ever because of organizations like the Georgia Film Academy in partnership with the University System of Georgia. And to share more about the mission and the role of the Georgia Film Academy with the larger Georgia film industry, we have Joshua Lee. He's a secondary education and academics manager within the University System of Georgia, working for the Georgia Film Academy. Welcome to the Business Hour, Josh.
Hey, thanks, Ron. Really appreciate you having me here.
Well, Josh, for listeners who are not familiar with the film industry in Georgia, and I dare say when I travel around the country, and for that matter, even here in Georgia, if you don't live in Atlanta and a part of Atlanta or in one of the towns where there's production going on, and there are signs posted for crew members to go this way or that way, and you know things are in production. You see entire parking lots of churches overtaken by the production crews. They may catch glimpses of Jennifer Aniston or one of the big stars in a restaurant. But if you're not here and you're not one of the communities where there's a lot of production going on, you don't really know that the film industry here in Georgia rivals the film industry in New York and Los Angeles, and that we are number 3, and that we have vacillated into the number 1 spot for either revenue or numbers of productions. But tell us a little bit about that, Josh.
Yeah. Well, for some context, in 2008, we were at $211 million in revenue or economic impact. In 2018, we were $9.5 billion in economic impact. And you referenced productions. We're up to 455 productions here in Georgia in 2018, and as you were also referencing, we were number 1 for feature films because of all the blockbuster movies. So we're actually number 5 in the world, as you mentioned, number 3 in the States for number of productions, and number 1 for features. So it's crazy to see the real impact. And I know that they just released maybe a month ago, the economic spending or the spending from industry had gone up from $2.6 billion last year to $2.9 this year. So we're seeing continued growth, and we think that this is just the beginning, honestly.
Well, and some people might be familiar that we have ongoing television productions like The Walking Dead. But what that says is that bodes well for the future, particularly with franchises. Some of the Marvel productions have taken place here, and that means there'll be more Marvel productions, presumably. We have Screen Gems. We have the Tyler Perry Studios, which has been in operation for a while, even though they've made a big splash very recently, sort of in a grand opening fashion, but also the Pinewood Studios. And one of the things I noticed was that the Pinewood Studio complex that's just outside of Atlanta actually rivals the Pinewood complex that's just outside of London. They're both approximately 30 miles outside of London and Atlanta, respectively. But one of the ways that the magnitude of a studio, the size of an operation, is measured is by sound studios. And I think there are actually more sound studios here in Atlanta, and that means technical, talented craftspeople behind the scenes, and that kind of brings us to what the Georgia Film Academy does to supply the studios, not directly necessarily, although we'll talk about that, but you're involved in those formative stages for young technical talent, and tell us a little bit about exactly, or give us an overview of the Georgia Film Academy's role, and then we'll drill down into talking about your role and some of the specifics. But tell us about how the Film Academy came into existence and a little bit about the mission.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So my supervisor likes to call the Georgia Film Academy Governor Deal's deal to address the exploding film and television industry that's here. So what was happening is we were seeing this economic increase where all of these productions were coming from LA, they were coming from New York, they were coming here to take advantage of the tax credit, but they were bringing in all of the positions. So it wasn't actually Georgians working on these film sets, it was people from LA and people from New York, and it wasn't sustainable for them, it wasn't sustainable for us. So Governor Deal created the Georgia Film Academy to train interested employees or interested and talented people to come work on film sets. So we launched in January 2016, and we're actually under the university system of Georgia. So any university system and technical system can technically offer our program. So we're currently at 23 different institutions across the state, and students enroll in our classes the same way they would for any other class at their institution. So we're a 3-semester program, with the first semester being known as GFA 1, which is Intro to On-Set Production. And that really focuses on the various departments and the life of working on a film set. So it really exposes you and trains you to what a film set's really like, because there's a lot of misconceptions about that, right? Most people think holding a camera and posting a video on YouTube is the same as working on a film set. Well, we bring in industry professionals that have created really great curriculum and training, and we train at our various hubs, which I can talk about in a second. And students get exposed to all levels of production, from sound to grip to art department, etc. So that's the first course, and no matter what students want to do through the Georgia Film Academy, they have to take that first course at the college level. And then the second course that they have to take is known as a specialty craft course. So we started with 3 specialty craft courses in 2016. It was lighting and electric, set construction and scenic painting, and grip and rigging. And those 3 were the main courses that we were offering because that's where the jobs were. So, and we can talk about that also in a second, but so it was through the High Demand Career Initiative that we developed those 3 courses, and same deal, we brought in instructors and industry professionals to come lead those courses in curriculum development and training. And then since then, we've expanded. We are now partners with Avid, which is the post-production company for film and television. And we offer Avid courses as a specialty craft course. We also offer special effects and makeup, or special makeup effects, sorry, that's the name, where students get to come and actually create zombies. And then finally, this upcoming semester, we're launching production accounting and office management. So we have 6 options for students to take as a specialty craft course, depending on where they think they might want to go in the industry. And then the third semester can be an internship, and it's really what's kind of the secret sauce of the Georgia Film Academy. So we're the only film and television workforce development program that has a contract with the labor union. So with that contract, we're able to place students on the various productions, some of which you've already named: Walking Dead, Stranger Things, all of the Marvel movies that have come here, which have been a lot. Bad Boys 3, Ozark, the list goes on. So That's a really highly competitive program. So if students do really well in their first 2 semesters, they can then be placed on an internship where they're actually spending 4 weeks. It's paid on one of these films that I just mentioned. And they're not just getting coffee. They're actually doing some real hands-on work to be exposed to what it's like to be on the film set. And it's kind of their shot, right? We're giving them their kind of foot in the door.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most influential aspects of the Georgia Film Academy is that you get that exposure through those internships, and it's real exposure. And, it's exposure to professional, large-scale productions, but also for them to get exposure. So it's two-way exposure. So they're learning, but also it's their moment to shine. And people forget that if you will look at the credits following any production, almost any production, but certainly the big blockbuster, all the Marvel series, hundreds of people are involved in post-production for sure, but there are hundreds of people involved, and when you talk about set and rigging, I mean those guys and women are kind of jacks of all trades. They're in there, and when somebody has this request to move that mountain, they're trying to figure out, how do I change that around to create this perspective, change lighting, change the set design, working with the set designers, working with the lighting people. But so you become a jack of all trades, and you're really, I think, learning probably just an awful lot in the hands-on part of the. As part of that internship, you mentioned the Walking Dead. We both did. It's because it's one of the most prominent television productions in the world, and when you talk about hair and makeup, that's got to be there's got to be a large army of hair and makeup people that are meticulously putting together all the zombies. I mean that alone. For someone who is thinking about hair and makeup, that kind of exposure is incredible. And walk me through how many interns at a time and for what duration might they be on any given set?
Yeah, great question. So something I wanted to note, typically the average film has 100 to 500 jobs available to work on a set. The Marvel movies are somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 jobs, which is pretty incredible. But skipping ahead to the internship, which you just asked about, so it really depends, is the short answer, on what productions are here and what productions are looking for interns. And typically it's 4 weeks that come with our internship program, and so that's in short.
Yeah, the nature of these productions, again, you just mentioned 100 to 500 for smaller productions, 3,000 to 5,000 for a Marvel production means there's going to be lots and lots of opportunities, and we're going to be taking a break. When we come back, I want to say a little bit more about how talent used to be imported and how now you are growing internal talent, and that those people are part of the whole economic picture here in Georgia. We're here with Josh Lee of the Georgia Film Academy. We'll be back with Josh to talk more about the behind-the-scenes role that he plays in how the Georgia Film Academy supports the film industry here in Georgia right after this break.
In 2009, the membership organization Docs for Patient Care was founded. People all around the country wanted to participate in the efforts of this group, and they wanted to join, but they were unable to do so unless they were physicians. It's for this reason that the Docs for Patient Care Foundation was created. Now, everyone can join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients, dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. While you're at your computer, please go to www.docs4patientcarefoundation.org. That's www.docs4patientcarefoundation.org and make a tax-deductible donation and join the fight along with us. Thank you.
This is Ron Comacho, host of the Business Hour, on Fridays from 10 to 11 a.m. Join me as I talk with passionate professionals on a program that profiles the best businesses, business professionals, business practices, and fascinating individuals to get an insider view of how America works. 10 to 11 a.m. on America's Web Radio.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696-9862 and speak to a representative of the Atlanta Healing Center. They can tailor a program specifically designed to address the needs of the person suffering with an addiction, or give you guidance as to where that help may be found. Information is the key, and the trained staff at AHC is here to assist. If you wish, you can also get more information on the website located at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Welcome back to the Business Hour. We're here with Josh Lee of the Georgia Film Academy. Joshua is a secondary education and academics manager with the University System of Georgia, working for the Georgia Film Academy. And we've been talking about the role of the Georgia Film Academy in supporting the Georgia film and television industry. And while we were on break, we were talking about all the different aspects that people just aren't aware of that support that industry. And I know when I talk to people in other states, particularly when it's another state where there is a film and television industry. In fact, talking with relatives in North Carolina that work with the Wilmington studios, they cited our tax credit system as being the singular biggest factor, and it could be, but it's by no means the only factor. It's the support mechanisms in totality from looking into the future, the Georgia Film Academy. But there are businesses that support the industry. And from location selection, private location scouting sources, to the internal mechanisms of the Georgia Film Commission, where every single county, and there are a lot of counties. I think Georgia has one of the highest per capita number of counties in the country. And so for every county, there's a location scout, if you will, and a production company coming to town, much less the existing production companies. If you're in Montana and you want to come to film in Georgia, and you have some specifications for a river, a waterfall, bucolic farm scenes, we have many counties, but you'll get back still images, and I don't know, you may get video of some of the locations, but there's a lot of support to the industry that's way behind the scenes that all adds up to wooing production and keeping production facilities here in Georgia. I want to go back to the Georgia Film Academy, and Josh, tell me about your role and when in the arc of the evolution of the Georgia Film Academy they realized that they needed someone in the role of secondary education and academics manager, and you might start with how you would describe that position.
Sure, yeah. Well, so I think it might be helpful to describe our mission vision at the Georgia Film Academy, which is to build a permanent and sustainable film and television industry here in Georgia. So to do that, you got to build the entire ecosystem of the film industry here. So what that means, we like to say we have a fantastic production industry, and that's what we've been talking about, but the writers' rooms and the post-production, the other two big components of the film industry, distribution could be argued as one as well, are all done still in LA and New York. So at the Georgia Film Academy, we're focused on building that full ecosystem and that full pipeline for training and talent. So that being said, I think it was realized, and even not only by demand, but just by the kind of nature or the arc of building this industry, you've got to start at the high school level. You've got to start at the secondary level. So, that said, principals, parents, students, nonstop are reaching out to the Georgia Film Academy. How do I get my kids exposed? They really want to work here. How do we start training some of these students and exposing them at a young age so that they can be more prepared when they get up to the USG level or to where they get to old enough to work on a film set? So that's why I was brought on. So my role, as you mentioned, secondary education and academics manager. I oversee, and I'm working a lot with extended education, so some other initiatives that are similar to high school, but also kind of that extend off of that specific education pathway, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. You had mentioned earlier that there were 23 schools. Are those that include high school and college, or those were college?
So those are just
through the University System of Georgia.
So university systems and technical systems, and that includes UGA, Kennesaw State, Georgia State, Clayton State, Savannah Tech. I mean, the list goes on to equal 23.
And how about on the high school level? Because I had originally contacted you because I knew of a young lady who was she's a budding film producer. She had her hands in video production, music, dance. I just think she's on her way to one day being a director producer. And she was a little young. She was 14 years old, which might make her a little young for some of the high school programs. But I got the impression from you that you're thinking about making the program responsive to younger and younger age groups because talent exists. So tell us about where and how many high schools are involved and what kinds of programs the high schools offer.
Sure. So we started first. So I did a bunch of research to start, which was contacting districts, local county districts, and asking, how can we best support? And almost unanimously it was our teachers need content knowledge, so they need training so that they can in turn impact their students, which made a lot of sense to us because we can only have so much with the number of high school students there are, and with our small team, there's only limited impact. So what we started to do, or what we began with, was training AVTF, or audio video technology, and film teachers from across the state. So that course is essentially what teaches students or exposes high school students to film. And I used to be a AVTF teacher once upon a when, so we created a 2-week training program. So we took GFA 1, which is what I mentioned earlier, and we condensed it to a 2-week training program. We aligned it to Department of Education state standards. We actually created a 9-unit curriculum that included about 50 PowerPoints. It has tests, rubrics, projects, scripts. I mean, you name it. It's pretty thorough.
And are those teaching tools, were they produced by the GFA?
They were, yeah. So we had our same deal. Expert instructors that created our curriculum at the college level also create this curriculum for the high school level. And it took some condensing. And again, we aligned everything. We found the state standards for AVTF, and we took our content that aligns to those standards to really expose students to what the film industry is really like. Because as I mentioned earlier, there's kind of a misconception about it. So we started 3 years ago, and we've now had 100 AVTF teachers, literally from across the state. I mean, all over, go through this training that we've had at Pinewood, and we're set to do it again this year, which is really exciting. And that was how we started.
Well, let me ask you, when you made those phone calls, I would think that they were very receptive. I mean, they not only told you that they needed to have some content knowledge passed on to the teachers, but they would have all been thrilled. I mean, because they're trying to make their curriculums more responsive to student desires. So I would imagine you batted 1,000 in terms of any school wanting to be involved?
Yeah, the demand was incredibly high. And, I mean, what we find is a lot of people who teach film or AV at schools either were teaching a different subject matter and just thought it'd be fun to teach this subject, or they have some kind of broadcast background, right, where they've done maybe some personal broadcast productions or done some stuff on YouTube, etc. So this training was designed to expose those teachers to kind of what the film industry's like, and then in turn, we're getting to impact exponentially more students than we'd be able to without this program.
Now, have you managed to track some of the high school students and whether or not they're continuing on at one of the college, universities, technical school programs to build on what they were exposed to in high school?
Mm-hmm. Great question. I mean, we don't have a formal tracking system in place, but I stay in touch with these teachers that have gone through the training. We do what's called a retention program, where we meet regularly, like once every couple months, where we talk through kind of what's going well with the curriculum, what could be better. We bring in guest speakers. We have kind of guest lecturers, and so through those conversations and through those meetings, I hear a lot of stories about students who are continuing on to take the Georgia Film Academy or pursue film at their university of their choice because they're so interested and passionate about it now.
Now, do any of these high school students get any on-site exposure, on-location exposure, either with a field trip? I wouldn't imagine there are internships, but there could be, I guess, for a few. But do they get exposure getting to go to some of the studios?
Yeah, so not yet. For one, to be an intern, you have to be at least 18. So most high school students aren't 18. For two, there's a lot of liability issues. So a lot of the studios, and it's the studio's choices, but they don't allow just random people to take tours or to walk on set. So even you and I would struggle, not only high school students, but you and I would struggle to be able to get a tour of a set.
I won't be surprised that if in time, the GFA has a clout, if you will, or at least the respectability of an organization that would be allowed to bring in, say, groups of 6 or 12 kids on the periphery of a location, just because I could only imagine that it would really solidify interest and passion in kids to want to stay involved. We're going to be taking a break, but we're here with Josh Lee, who's sharing with us an insider view of what the Georgia Film Academy is doing to expose teachers who in turn are exposing students to various aspects of the film and television production industry. We'll be back with Josh in a couple of minutes.
The Docs for Patient Care Foundation is your way to join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. Get a pen and paper. Write down www.docsforpatientcarefoundation.org. That's www.docsforpatientcarefoundation.org. Go to our site and please make a generous tax-deductible donation and join the fight today. Thank you. Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
45 years of experience is behind the most trusted name in auto transportation, Passport Transport, the first and finest today. That's why Passport Transport is the preferred auto transport for major auto manufacturers, concours, museums, tours, and collectors, and should be your choice from across the state to across the country. When you have the need, go to PassportTransport.com and enjoy the peace of mind referenced experience will give you. Passport Transport.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Welcome back to the Business Hour. I'm Ron Comacho, your host, and we're here with Josh Lee of the Georgia Film Academy. And Josh has been telling us about various aspects of how the Georgia Film Academy prepares students with the help of teachers, both in high school and on the college level, through the Georgia University system, to actually gain hands-on skill sets and in a variety of positions, and we'll go through those in a bit. But before that, tell us more about the programs, Josh.
Yeah, thanks. So, we started with AVTF, as I mentioned, which is kind of the production side of things. And then we worked with the Department of Education and a local district, Fayette County Schools, to create a brand new English language arts course for the state of Georgia. And it is so exciting, Ron. I mean, this is the first new English course in quite some time that's available to students to take as any other English language course option. So it's called Dramatic Writing for Film, Television, and Theater 1. And so it's a full year course that can replace, again, a standard English course. So just like everything else, we gathered industry professionals. We had a former Netflix screenwriter, a former Disney screenwriter. We partnered with the Alliance Theater, a bunch of English educational professionals, and we created training and curriculum for this course. So we created a full year of curriculum that focuses on film and television and even theater writing, and just story writing and personal narrative. And it's been incredible how successful it's been in such a short time. So this was approved in May of 2018. We started training in summer of 2018, so it's only been a little over a year since we started training, and we've had 200 teachers, and we're anticipating over doubling that this year, go through this training and get certified to teach this course. So the curriculum and the exposure, all also align to an industry that exists in their backyard, right? And it's if I'm a personal student and I have to choose between what English course I want to take, and I can go and write a screenplay and learn about an industry, I might choose to take that course.
No question about it. I mean, when you're given the option of various electives in college, you're going to get course credit for this as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're not talking about something that is a
elective,
a seminar for which you don't get course credit. Right. It's a full-blown course, and not only that, but it's directly related to something that you could be doing actually pretty soon. I mean, in some cases, some of the positions that are available for some of the production companies, they're not always interested in a ton of experience, and they're certainly not always interested in a ton of credentials. But if you've been through a program that actually has taught you some specific skills, you're going to be in a much better position to actually get a position. Might be an entry-level position or an internship, but that's faster than you might get an internship, paid or unpaid, in a whole slew of industry segments. So really, it's course credit and the benefits of a potential position somewhere has got to be really, really attractive. The positions that are available, would you tell us a little bit, just kind of run down the list of what's available and maybe hit the highlights of each?
Sure, yeah. I mean, so as we were discussing, just a little earlier, there are hundreds of jobs, so there's a list way longer than even what we have here. But a lot of the jobs, and most of the jobs that are available, are known as below-the-line jobs. So we have above the line, which are usually known as the content creator, so the camera operator, the director, producer, writer, actors. And then we have the below-the-line jobs, which can be everything we talked about, such as someone who works in set construction or grip and rigging or lighting and electric. So when you're thinking, that said, there's so many jobs that people don't think of. So people don't think that they can be an engineer on a film set. If you want to pursue being an engineer, you can be a nurse on a film set. You can be in craft services, which is making food on a film set. Location scout. I mean, who would think that you could work in the film industry just scouting locations, right? So there are just so many different jobs that are available for interested candidates.
And again, I would suggest to listeners who have really not thought about this at length to sit and watch the credits at the end of a movie, which I always do. I just want to see if particularly as a Georgia production, I want to see if there's some friends or people that I know that were involved in a production. Look at the sheer number of positions that range from craft foods to the whole audio team, the whole electrical team. They're starting to give credit further down the line than ever before. And I would imagine maybe at some point in time this popped into my head, but it's kind of a different dimension than some of the technical positions. But there are accounting firms and law firms that are acknowledged now in the credits. And, at some point in time, there'll be that whole dimension. You'll maybe add, accounting for movie production.
And we're starting that course this upcoming spring.
I rest my case. I mean, because it's a specific skill set involved in a specific industry. What is considered an office production assistant? Is that a real generalized term?
Yeah, a production assistant is a pretty general term. It can vary. It's kind of your entry-level job onto a film set is typically what's known as a production assistant. But often there's so many different departments that have their own production assistant that do different tasks based on the department, based on the movie, etc. Does that make sense? So some of them could be helping with lights or cable, or the art department has productions assistant. So it's kind of the foot in the door, more or less, depending. But at the same time, it varies based on what your interests are and where you get placed and the film itself.
Well, I'm also wondering if possibly down the road, and this would be pretty ambitious on one hand, but you have is it the AMI or the AFI, American Film Institute in Los Angeles, that I think grooms writer, director, producer types. So on the creative side. But you and I also had a conversation about taking this interdisciplinary approach, so that if you were to take a few of these courses, which would really make you valuable to a production company, a big one or a small one, maybe even more to a small one. And we didn't name a lot of the small production companies that are thriving here in Georgia. If you were to take a few of these courses, it would make you very valuable because you're able to wear a lot of different hats. And then that combination, that interdisciplinary combination, I think would serve a future director very well. And so I'm imagining that at some point in time you could parlay some of this into a director, and these programs do exist. I mean, USC and UCLA have director courses. And so I won't be surprised if eventually we move, or you move in that direction. Do you see that possibly on the horizon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question, and I think that's our stance on it as well. Is that you're going to be so much better prepared to be a director or producer if you've been exposed and experienced these different jobs. I think of like a baseball coach or a football coach. Often they've played the game, so they really understand how the positions work together and what each position does without being in the coaching role yet. So they're going to be that much better of a coach if they've been exposed and understand all kind of the actual tangibles that it takes to do the different positions. And that applies to the film industry as well. You're going to be so much better of a director or a writer if you're understanding how the camera operates and how all the teams work together to create your vision when it comes to making a movie.
And quite honestly, even better than the experience that some coaches might have, Generally, offense remains offense. Receivers work with receivers. Quarterbacks working with quarterbacks. But the head coaching positions, of which there are very, very, very few, those guys have even come up through, in many cases, silos. The offensive guys didn't play defense and didn't necessarily play more than one position. If they did, that makes them, I think, more valuable as a head coach. And in this case, that multidisciplinary approach really would go into making someone valuable as a director. The Georgia Film Academy has Jeff Stepikoff as the executive director, Kate McArdo as director of film, workforce development, and capstone projects. Scott Vota, director of production. Do you work with Dr. Aaron Levy closely?
I do, yeah. He's my direct supervisor.
Tell me a little bit about his role.
Yeah, so he is tasked with overseeing all academics for the Georgia Film Academy. So he focuses a lot on the curriculum development and instruction on the college side. So he has helped kind of create all the training and curriculum from scratch, more or less, with these industry professionals when the Georgia Film Academy started 2016.
And Wendy Quinn Gooten is the Director of Strategic Enrollment Management and Academic Operations, so you have someone also that you work hand-in-hand with, and there's got to be a lot of details associated with enrollment.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you see, we're a pretty small team, so we all have to work together to make all of our different initiatives work. So all of these initiatives that I work on the secondary level, I have to rely and work on with our small but very mighty team. So all of these different people you just listed have had experience that have just led to be a perfect fit for the roles they're in now, and they all do a really fantastic job.
Yeah, I get the impression you run pretty lean and that you're very effective for being a small team. We don't want to forget Brandy Denard, who's an executive assistant, and Blair Witt, who's an administrative coordinator. Is there anyone we might have left out?
Yeah, we have Danny Williams, who works with Scott Vota in production. We have Carla Frazier, who works with Wendy on strategic enrollment, and they also do a fantastic job together.
Yeah, I want to give a real tip of the hat shout out to the whole team, should anyone be listening, because I think you do a really fantastic job. We talked earlier about your role in supporting the industry, not so much the industry today, although I would imagine there are some people in some of these programs that are going immediately into a role on a production, because 43 TV shows and movies being filmed in just October. You mentioned 455 over the last 12 months are slated for this year, last year.
Yeah.
And but 43 in 1 month alone is a lot. It may well be more than currently in Los Angeles or New York. Maybe not. It's going to be probably no further down the line than the third number of TV and film productions. But that means hundreds or thousands of positions. Now, those positions, as you mentioned earlier, used to be filled by crews moving into Atlanta temporarily for the duration of that production. Then slowly, that number turned into people who said, hey, I'll stick around for another production with another studio, or they may stay with Pinewood or Screen Gems or one of the other studios, Tyler Perry. But as those people became permanent residents, and as you groom people to be in various roles, I mean, that contributes to the local economy, and that would have been a very influential factor in the state legislature wanting to be supportive as well. We're going to be taking another break, but we're here with Josh Lee of the Georgia Film Academy, and he's been sharing some really fascinating background on how the GFA supports the film and television industry. We'll be back right after this break.
Your auto love and investment demands the best, and for 45 years, Passport Transport has been meeting those demands. From manufacturers to the one-car collectors and all other facets of the auto industry and antique auto hobby. The first and the finest with unequaled service and peace of mind. Passport Transport, your auto transportation company. Contact PassportTransport.com with your need today. Passport Transport.
Whether cruising the Strip in a 57 Chevy or taking the family on a vacation in a 71 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser, you need to tune in to Classic Cars with Steve Ronaldo and Jim Weber every Saturday from 8 to 9 a.m. on americaswebradio.com.
If your health insurance premium is more than your mortgage, Ellen Deal with Ideal Solutions is here to help. Whether you're a small business owner, individual family, or baby boomer, email MAGA45CAG@gmail.com and I'll respond with 3 easy questions to help you determine if you can get away from Obamacare. As a 20-year veteran of the insurance industry, I'm here to help with all your insurance needs. Email Ellen Deal at MAGA45CAG@gmail.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Welcome back to the Business Hour. I'm Ron Comacho, your host, and I'm with Josh Lee of the Georgia Film Academy, and Josh is offering a really nice insider view of what goes on with the Georgia Film Academy to support the Georgia film and television industry. And I can't imagine that you won't be playing a bigger and bigger role in the future generation of technically skilled production support for the industry. You told a story when we were off the air about Frank Patterson from the Pinewood Studios. For people not familiar with Pinewood Studios, that is the production company that originally based out of London, and it might have been James Bond franchise that put them on the map, but then the Lord of the Rings franchise and a lot of other prestigious productions. They have a facility here in Atlanta, and many people may not be familiar with the fact that the production facilities here are go toe-to-toe with production facilities there in sheer volume of production and size of operations. I believe they're both like 230-some acres. They both have a similar number of sound stages, which is one way to measure, the magnitude of the size of a production company. And you were telling me something that an observation that Frank Patterson had made.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So when he first started seeing productions come, and this is something we were talking about earlier, is that he was noticing LA license plate, LA license plate, LA license plate, maybe a New York license plate. And that was, 3 or 4 years ago. And now that we have a hub at Pinewood Studios, and we've been doing this for 3 or 4 years, now he's noticing that there's so many more Georgia license plates in the parking lot. So it's working. We're getting Georgians into the jobs in the film industry. You may know, because I mentioned this to you, that I was on the corporate industrial production side. I worked with little production companies that primarily worked also on the corporate side, for Coca-Cola or IBM or Georgia Pacific, with companies like Georgia Pacific having their own internal studios as well as the Coca-Cola company. But a lot of those people were highly skilled and have gone on to great careers in the film and television industry with these studios. Tell us about this other dimension working with the Avid program. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. So Avid is the film and television editing software, as I mentioned earlier, for film and television, and we've partnered with them. So now the Georgia Film Academy is the Southeast training hub for Avid post-production, and our main training facility is down at Pinewood Studios. But so focusing on my role, we are going to be launching high school teacher training, where we're going to be certifying high school teachers who can in turn certify high school students with a internationally recognized professional certification for editing. So you see the 3 kind of dimensions that I'm focused on, which is AVTF, which is production, dramatic writing, which is content creation or pre-production, and then Avid, which is post-production, kind of the full ecosystem of the film industry that we're starting at the high school level and that we're exposing students to. And, as I mentioned, we've had 300 teachers now from literally across the state that are now exposing their students and training their students so that when they do come up, they can be ready and prepared. And by the way, there's 23 different institutions they can go to and take 3 semesters, and by the 3rd semester, they can be in the industry. So we're really trying to create that full pathway or that full pipeline for the industry for students.
And again, we're going to go back to those scrolling credits at the end of a movie. A lot of times, if it's a movie that is in part or in whole on location in a foreign country, you'll see names that correspond. There'll be a Vietnamese crew, or there'll be an Indian crew or a Russian crew, along with the crew that came out from the U.S. In post-production, you will see armies of people in foreign countries that are involved in post-production. We're talking about more jobs for more Americans and Georgians that are actually going to be created, or for which you are going to groom people to take those positions, and that's thousands of jobs more, because those are some of the, on some of the digital editing, there are just thousands of people, that you can see in the credits. Literally hundreds, and in total thousands. It used to be that just Turner Broadcasting, who has their animations group, had probably the largest army of digital animators and post-production folks. But now, more of those people, I would imagine, we'll see more post-production facilities opening up along with the set location production facilities here in Georgia. Josh, I want to turn to you for a moment, because our listeners are always endlessly fascinated with how anyone got to anywhere in their career. And you have a background that's pretty well suited for what you're doing. If I dare say, you are cast in the right role. Tell us a little bit about, let's go back as far as we can when you were doing anything that you think could have led to your current position, and just walk us through that evolution.
Yeah, thanks. I think I'll start in college, where I did a program called Washington Media Institute that exists. It's a experiential education program that focuses on actually getting hands-on experience and exposure for students, and that kind of changed my life and perspective or perception of education as a whole. So, I think as a student, I wasn't fond of education, and getting this experience kind of made me love education. So during that experience, I interned at CNBC, so that was kind of my first real television job. Came back to Atlanta and ended up working at CNN for about a year. And then from my contacts from when I was in D.C., I actually moved back to D.C., and I spent about 2 years there running my own production company. And it ended up being a pretty successful company. I was having about 5 to 7 gigs. I had to hire 3 people. And it was, I was essentially a jack of all trades, right? So I was having to learn to do all the steps, etc. So moving on.
Yeah, well, I want to just interject here when we're talking about interdisciplinary skills. That experience has helped you in this role as well.
Correct.
I would imagine.
Exactly.
Because you kind of walk the walk and you're able to talk the talk.
Definitely,
based on that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I moved to Florida for a startup that was kind of irrelevant, but at the same time, great experience to learn kind of building a startup. Moved back to Georgia and ended up getting a job teaching at Northview High School, where I fell in love with education and leading education. So I was there for about 4 years, won Teacher of the Year at the school with no teaching background. We won lots of state and national competitions, our team did. My favorite experience that I've ever had. I got promoted to the district level, where I worked for Fulton County Schools, overseeing film and television, as well as helping with curriculum for the ABTF classes. I started an internship program where I was getting students from literally across the district, which is a pretty big district, jobs making videos or doing productions and getting exposure. We went to NBC CNN, a bunch of those different places where they got kind of behind the scenes look at how these organizations run. So through that internship program, I was getting them connected to movie studios since it was kind of blossoming at the time, and through that I got connected to the Georgia Film Academy. And because of these different experiences where I've been kind of working with high school education at the school level, district level, and now state level, I kind of have, as you mentioned, kind of some background and exposure to the production process, as well as now exposure to education. And it's what I'm really passionate about. It's what I love doing. I think it's what gets me out of bed, is creating these kind of innovative opportunities for students that they don't get in their traditional classroom.
Well, you mentioned early on that you were not enamored with education. A lot of times it's because it's not the right subject matter.
Right.
I think we had a chat and I was talking about my background, and the reason I think I'm a media guy is because it's a multidisciplinary approach to everything, news for me, and gave me exposure to both the media but also various subjects. It made it more interesting, and you found something then that you could really be passionate about, which is media in a sense, but film and television specifically. Do you do hands-on training of some of the teachers? Do you have any interaction with the students? Tell us about your kind of your day-to-day role.
Yeah, my day-to-day is so varied because we are a small but mighty team, right? So, I'm tasked with staying in touch with the 300 teachers that have gone through our training. So I chat with them on a regular basis. I attend all the trainings and help where I can. I've helped with the curriculum development and, leading some of those training sessions. And then I also go around and speak to lots of high school students in classrooms, and we try to do different tours for high school groups and teachers, etc.
Well, Josh, as I said earlier, I think you're perfectly suited in many ways. I mean, maybe someone can envision someone who is better suited, but I really can't imagine that person being better than someone like you. And I can hear and feel the passion. I think our listeners can as well. And I when we had Jeff Stefikoff on the program, he was passionate as well. I think we're very lucky to have the Georgia Film Academy here in Georgia, and I bet the industry is thrilled as well. Thank you for taking the time to come on to the Business Hour and being my guest.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ron. Really appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Business Hour here at America's Web Radio. We're on Fridays from 10 to 11 a.m. We'll see you on the radio and internet next week. Have a great weekend.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
You can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan, and every family will save thousands of dollars a year. I'm Ellen Deal, and if you've been hurt by the Affordable Care Act, you can email MAGA45CAG@gmail.com to see if we can help. Small business owners, individuals, families, and baby boomers, email MAGA45CAG@gmail.com.